Congressman Donalds.
Michael, how you doing? Michael, what do you have going on in here? This is like the party inside the conference. What is happening?
Well, Florida was always the sunshine state, and it was all about oranges. And Bitcoin is the orange movement. So it's only fitting that we should have a Floridian here to discuss Bitcoin in Florida. I've known you for a while, but I think everybody here would like to know you. So maybe you could start by just telling the audience how you got into politics and what your current plan is.
Well, first, it's great to be here with everybody. Thanks so much for coming out to this. I'm Byron Donalds, member of Congress. I represent Southwest Florida, Naples, Fort Myers, Marco Island. So I know there's a lot of Naples people here. I know. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, born and raised. Finance background. That's kind of how I got into business. I spent 17 years in financial services, banking, insurance. I was a frontline financial advisor. I'm securities licensed. And I got the political bug out of the financial collapse in '08, really because I was watching members of Congress talk about the financial collapse and they didn't know what they were talking about. And so it pissed me off as somebody who was young and in his career. And I'm like, who are these guys? What are they talking about? They don't know what really happened in banking to cause the collapse. And so I got motivated and I got hungry about politics, got involved locally, and one thing leads to another. I go from giving speeches, people ask me to run for office. I started doing that. I spent 4 years in the state legislature. I got elected to Congress in 2020. I'm now a member of Congress, and I'm running for governor. And so this time next year, there we go.
So, as the future governor of Florida, perhaps you could share with the group your political views and your economic views.
So this is actually a great question. My economic philosophy really is born out of reality. Like, I'm a city kid. I came up from nothing. I understand what it is to have to raise capital, what it is if you're going to go and start a business. I underwrote just about every business you can think of when I was in commercial banking. To generally say it, I am out of the Austrian School of Economics. That's my economic theory. Hayek is right. Milton Friedman is right in the way they view economic policy, the way they view monetary policy. And so that has always guided my political thinking, was my economics. And then what I layered into that was really having a true revere of the Constitution, the documents that the framers were reading when they wrote the U.S. Constitution. And so those are the types of things that kind of kept me going along the path I am politically. One of the first books I ever read was The Law by Frederick Bastiat. If you haven't read it, read it. It's an excellent book. It doesn't talk about Republicans versus Democrats. It talks about the purpose of law and how the law is supposed to be stable for all people to be able to operate on. And the essential premise is that before the French Revolution, the law was written in 1850 by Frederick Bastiat, that before the French Revolution, you had politicians who were maneuvering the law to favor certain interests, and it ended up collapsing the entire society. So that's the book that spoke to me politically. Couple that with my economic thoughts and backgrounds, and you have who I am now. I'm a conservative. I believe in free markets. I believe in free people. I believe in setting the rules to the road and basically getting out of the way and letting people thrive and innovate and succeed.
What do you see as the political divide in Florida? If you're governor, what policies would you champion? And what do you think is the direction of Florida if your opponent is elected governor?
So a couple things. One, in Florida, and I got to give full credit to Governor DeSantis on this. His governorship was really a battle of the culture wars, if you will. And in Florida, he was decisively successful. He won those. And so in our state, Republicans not only control the state, we have dominant control over the state. So to the second half of the question, I think it's David Jolly is running as the Democrat. I think that's who's running. You would have a situation where the entire political philosophy of David, to a degree, would unwind a lot of what Florida has become. There would be new impediments to economic innovation, to academic innovation. You wouldn't have the same, I would say the same innovative spirit and freedom spirit that you have in Florida today if Dave Jolly were to win. With me, we're going to continue the stuff that the governor has done, Governor DeSantis, but then we're going to layer on the next wave of Florida's future. What does it mean to be an economic, not just an economic engine, but to be the economic power in the country, to be the financial center of the world in Florida, and then all of the offshoots that come from that, whether it's healthcare, tech, education, et cetera, all of it at its core really begins with capital formation, capital movement. And so with me, Florida is going to become the financial hub of the world.
Florida, financial hub of the world. We like that. So speaking of finance, maybe you could share with the group how you discovered Bitcoin or became interested in this community?
So I got to apologize to you. The first time I heard about Bitcoin was 2015. It was like about, $1,100, $1,200 at the time, something like that. And I had clients, they came to me and they go, should I buy Bitcoin? And I looked at them in the meeting and I'm like, the hell are you talking about? I don't know anything about Bitcoin. I don't know. I didn't know. A lot of us didn't know. In the financial industry at the time, we would get guidance from the firm. The firm didn't even know what Bitcoin was or what blockchain was. They really couldn't conceptually explain it to us who were trying to give advice. So I would tell clients, look, if you got $2,000 to spare and you want to go do it, go do it. Just don't mess up our plan and what we have going on. I was wrong. I should have just went and bought it myself. It would have been great. That being said, what you see is that Bitcoin truly has become the holder of value that everybody desires it to be. And not just desires it to be, the fundamental structure of Bitcoin allows for the value to be able to be stabilized over time, because you cannot manipulate the amount of tokens that are going to be in circulation. That's critical. That manipulation is what happens in central banking all across the world. I mean, in the United States, we like to talk about how the Chinese manipulate their currency. We deficit spend, and we borrow from the future to pay for today. And the byproduct of doing that diminishes the purchasing power of the United States dollar. That's what we're doing today. Bitcoin has given Americans, and frankly the world, an ability to step out of the game that is central banking as we do it today politically. And you actually have a commodity, a currency, an asset that holds value over time. It's critical stuff. This is amazing. There was a time before nations actually knew how much gold could actually be excavated. Gold had value because people decided it was precious and would hold value. So to the naysayers out there, they say, well, this Bitcoin thing isn't real. I say, that's not true, because if you were in Vegas, you would know that. People have decided it has real tangible value, not just today, but over the long term. That is a major change. That's really what opened my eyes to it, is really the technical aspects of the creation, but then all of this. If you say it has value, it has value. And not just one person saying it. You now have an entire ecosystem that has not just said it, but they're now building infrastructure around it. They're building capacity around it. That is how you actually have something of value that now has a value that can be transmitted at your personal choosing or on a broader scale. I think it's a phenomenal movement. I'm happy to be supportive of it.
Well, speaking for everybody, I'm sure we'd all like to thank you for coming and being part of our community and taking such an interest. The next question, the logical one that follows is, what are your thoughts about the proper role of a governor with regard to Bitcoin policy, or how could Bitcoin help Florida? Do you have any thought about the role of states in adoption of Bitcoin or digital assets more generally?
So I think governors in particular can really lead in this space. Obviously, I think the first one, the easiest step is having a reserve, a strategic Bitcoin preserve. I know President Trump is going to make that happen federally. There's no reason we can't do that in every state. No reason we don't do that in Florida. And so I think that's step one, is having a strategic reserve of Bitcoin in Florida. The question is, how do you finance it? Is it a part of pension plans in Florida? Can there be a portion where employees can actually make direct investment in Bitcoin? Could it be a part of the state's actual surplus? In Florida, we do, I think we have about a $2 billion surplus. It could be more. I don't have the number committed to memory. Could a portion of our surplus be in Bitcoin? I think that's step one. Step two, to the broader ecosystem, I think this is much more where blockchain technology comes in. With blockchain, really taking blockchains to the next level, it's not just about the Bitcoin itself. It's about tokenized exchanges. It's about fractional ownerships. It's about smart contracts around like title deeds for people's homes. Like title fraud is a thing. People have to buy insurance associated with it. Well, what if the title for your home was actually tokenized and on the blockchain? And so you actually have direct access as the owner to that, where nobody else can corrupt that title that has been perfected. I think these are the areas that state governments can really step into to protect citizens, to give citizens more access to not just contracts and assets, but a way to also build wealth and to transact. I think that the applications could be in education, they could be in healthcare. I just talked about real estate. There are many applications that can be done. Bitcoin is the thing that's brought everybody to the environment, and now the ecosystem is what states can leverage to actually make life simpler, easier, more efficient, more responsive to people.
So if Florida is going to be the financial capital of the world, then presumably we want to do everything we can to bring companies to Florida, technology to Florida, and Bitcoin holders, Bitcoin companies, Bitcoin investors, Bitcoin tech companies to Florida. Do you have any thoughts about how much power does the governor have to do that by executive action versus legislation versus any other particular technique? What are the levers in order to attract crypto capital to Florida?
Well, I think the number one lever we want to use is legislative power, working with the legislature to make sure we craft out the regulatory framework in Florida. That's going to be essential. For me, I think the best regulatory system in an industry like this is a sandbox, is a regulatory sandbox. You can have the agencies comment on the industry, but the industry regulates itself. Because the truth is, Bitcoin and all of the derivatives that are going to come off of Bitcoin, everything associated around digital assets writ large, it's going to move so fast because the technology is going to move so fast, and your innovation is going to move faster than any bureaucrat could keep up with. So in my mind, you really want to have a regulatory sandbox where you just plow the field. And as long as people aren't being defrauded or harmed, then you kind of have freedom to operate how you see fit. So I think that's the first step. You got to do that legislatively, working with, we call it in Tallahassee, the fourth floor. That's where the House and the Senate is. And so you have to work with the fourth floor to get that stuff accomplished. Doing it that way, now it's the bedrock of Florida law and not just the executive order of the governor. And the beauty in the state legislature is you have legislatures that the governor can definitely work with. So I don't think it's a thing where I just write out orders to do it. We want to make sure that we cement this legislatively so that if there's going to be a change, it takes an overwhelming move of a future governor and a future legislature. orders can simply be changed by the stroke of a pen as quickly as they get put in by a stroke of a pen.
Are there any other states that you've been inspired by, or governors or leaders that you think set a good example that you're catalyzed by?
No. Florida's the best state in the country. I'm sorry if you're not in Florida, you're missing out, let me tell you. I'm being a little facetious. Vivek is a friend. I saw him last night. I said, and I'd say this to Vivek a lot, so I'll say it now on stage. It's about to go viral. You ready? Here we go. I say, Vivek, I love everything you're doing, baby. Congratulations. You get to be number 2. It's great. It's great. One of the innovations that I have seen, Texas does it. I think North Carolina does it too. They have somebody from North Carolina. You're happy? Texas? Yeah, they're number 3. Anyway, I'm just playing. But what they do, which I think is important, they created a business litigation court that goes alongside the civil tort system. So as you're moving companies to Florida, you're innovating, you're doing all these things, it is going to be important that we have a corporate business litigation court that is parallel to our civil justice system in Florida. So when you have some of these cases go through, at the end of the day, people just want to get them adjudicated as soon as possible. You don't want to have a churn and burn system because the plaintiff may feel they're not getting their due, but you want to have a system that makes sense, that is smooth, so business owners can actually plan their other operations around a lawsuit. It's unfortunate. You've been in business long enough, you're going to be in court. You want to get the case done. You don't want the attorneys to be making all the money while you're pulling your hair out trying to figure out how you're going to get past this deal. So I think that's something that Texas does that we need to bring to Florida. But other than that, Texas, we're just better. Sorry, Texas. We're just better.
How many people in the audience live in Florida? How many people in the audience have been through Florida, been to Miami? How many people would like to see Byron as the Bitcoin governor of Florida?
Taking all of you guys on the road. You guys are coming with me.
Well, Byron, I've seen you around the conference, and you've talked to a lot of people. Do you have any impressions of what you've seen here in Vegas from the Bitcoin community you'd like to share with the group?
I love the energy. I was in a meeting about an hour ago, and I said, from my vantage point, if you take this industry, you take Bitcoin, you take this industry, and you put it in the life cycle of a human being, you guys are like 9 months old. Like you're crawling around, you can pick your head up and look, you can grab at things, some things you shouldn't grab at, that's okay. But it's so much energy, and everybody's looking forward to the future. And I think that's a wonderful thing to see when you come to conferences. Some conferences, it's a little stale. People are thinking about their issue sets that they gotta fix. And so-and-so did this, and this is a real problem. And we have this major pending litigation in front of the Supreme Court. And what is Congress doing over here? There may be asset issues. There may be some hyper-technical issue that the entire industry is having to face. And don't get me wrong, you guys are having those same conversations, but there's just a forward-looking optimism, of not just about the possibilities, but even an excitement about the unknown. And I'm telling you now, we'll come back a decade and do this thing. We're gonna be light years ahead of where we are today. A bunch of you are gonna be like, we had no idea that thing took off. Like somebody's booth out there, you're like, I don't think that's gonna happen in a decade. It's the next big thing. You have no idea. To me, that level of excitement is amazing. And you guys have that here at this conference.
Let's give a hand to Congressman Byron Donalds, the next governor of Florida.